Hi, hello, it's me, Eva If It Hurts, bedroom-renowned drag queen and your mistress this evening. I'd like to formally apologize for the mess. My look today, the state of my apartment, my inbox, and the very big mess in the queer archive as a whole. Because I have really been inside it for the past few weeks, and I can definitively say it's a fucking mess. In between all my online digging, I found something glorious, something beautiful. A flyer about how to safely suspend someone from your ceiling. And I said, wow, that's it. This is my video. This is my concept. I can finally sleep. Or at least for now. So here's my thesis before I lose it again under a stack of PDFs. The traditional archive doesn't fail to capture queer life. That's not what I'm saying. Chill. But there's this sanitization. But if you want a more comprehensive view about AIDS activism, you gotta go digging. Through the messy, horny, crumpled, barely legible parts, the ones no one really cared all too much to preserve. When we talk about AIDS, we get this very polished narrative. The governmental neglect, the protests, the graphics, act up, silence equals death. And she is stunning. She's iconic, part of every syllabus, and for good reason. She's the erotica-era Madonna of what we think of AIDS activism. But she's a little controlled, a little behaved, knows what she wants and gets it. Because the archive favors activism that looks like confrontation, policy, a clear message, but what is left out? The body, the carnal desires of everyday people. Leather, latex if you're interested. A workshop called Better Homes, Better Dungeons. Here's a quote from Sanitizing History. In North America and the UK, the people affected by AIDS were leathermen. For this reason, leathermen often face stigma within the lesbian and gay communities that reinforce pre-existing prejudices against the fetish communities. For example, BDSM and fisting, using the fist for anal sex, were labeled as particularly dangerous even in the absence of scientific evidence. As Gail S. Rubin argued, stereotypes of leather sexuality as inherently dangerous, unsafe, undesirable, or unhealthy were assimilated into concerns over AIDS-related risks and hazards. Also in the historiography and HIV origin literature, leathermen and fistfuckers have been signaled out as a discernible group contributing to the early spread of HIV in North America. Edward Hooper, for instance, scapegoated them as sadistic people involved in ill-advised sexual practices. Now that I'm knee-deep in filth, I put my whole fist in it and I can definitively say she is not cleaned out. We have to look not in what is best preserved, but what is the alternative. I started here in the Leather Archives in Chicago, where I found my quintessential flyer. And the activism looks different. It looks like a Sunday workshop, coffee and juice provided, and a detailed discussion of how much weight a suspension should support. And I'm sitting here with my ratty wig and I'm like, wow, this is public health. This is what Munoz is talking about when he says, I am using it here, ephemera, is linked to alternate modes of textuality and narrativity like memory and performance. It is all those things that remain after performance, a kind of evidence of what has transpired, but certainly not the thing itself. It does not rest on epistemological foundations, but is instead interested in following traces, glimmers, residues, and specks of things. It is important to note that ephemera is a mode of proofing and producing arguments often worked by minoritarian culture and criticism makers. Ephemera is used in situations to validate an experience that wasn't enough to be archived properly, and we can still think of these absences as intentional. We can think of queer items in archives more broadly. The archive is believed to be unbiased, right? But it's not, and what we have is just that, solely. These moments that are fleeting are impossible to get a proper chronology of, and that's just queer life. Here it gets a little bit juicy. Here's where the picture becomes clearer. Who is excluded from the most from sanitized archives? Kink communities. Who is already doing insane style grassroots activism? Kink communities. The world of kink is already about negotiation. It's about risk, consent, asking what a body can handle, and what is safe for the body. This is something at the core of the discussion of the AIDS epidemic. When mainstream society says, stop having sex, kink communities say, let's have sex safely. We've touched a bit on Rubin a little, but let's talk sexual hierarchies. Modern Western societies appraise sex acts according to hierarchical systems of sexual value. Marital, reproductive heterosexuals are alone at the top of the erotic pyramid. Clambering below are unmarried monogamous heterosexuals and couples, followed by most other heterosexuals, Solitary sex floats ambiguously, stable long-term lesbian and gay male couples are verging on respectability, but bar dykes and promiscuous gay men are hovering just above the groups at the very bottom of the period. The most despised sexual case currently include transsexuals, transvestites, fetishists, sadomasochists, sex workers, such as prostitutes and porn models, and the lowliest of all, those whose eroticism transgresses generational boundaries. Within the context of the AIDS epidemic, we are discussing people whose sexual lives have already been vilified. People who are every day grappling with the nuances of being seen as less than human. That becomes an advantage in this context, as what is outside the realm of acceptable leaves room for adaptation. Adaptation to the virus, the circumstances, the vulnerability in a neglectful society. AIDS discourse is about American moral panic. Abstinence and fear, what is distinguished as clean or dirty. We even get it in ACT UP. I mean, these are gay people, but they're living in the context of moral panic. There were people in the organization practicing unsafe sex out of fear and shame, and the added context of bathhouse raids criminalization makes outreach a difficult subject.
So if you weren't having sex in ACT UP, but did you go to sex clubs that ACT UP people went to?
Sure.
So you saw them there.
And you know what? I can't. All I know is that I always saw, from the day I got to New York in the sex clubs, a lot of unsafe sex in the clubs. I saw a lot of fucking without condoms in the clubs all the time. And it got me, and I cannot say ACT UP members or not. I don't know. But I know that the amount of unsafe sex in the clubs, never significantly went down from the time.
The work done is important, but the message was being carried through Reagan-era politics. In order to be respected as an organization, they had to be asexual, even though the virus was transmitted sexually. There was this idea that monogamous homosexual relationships were somehow the cure, which later led to some activism on gay marriage, which is overall a net positive for the world. Love wins. However, if you're working from that framework, there is obviously some tension. We're ignoring certain groups of people in favor of others. Just like in the archive, we're prioritizing certain perspectives over others. But outside of America, in Toronto specifically, the question becomes, we know this is already viewed as immoral, but how can we live with this? Within the basic information of the Safer S&M project, there are these how-tos on how to have specific acts of safe sex. Safety in terms of physical and in terms of transmission. Wash your sex toys and whips of bodily fluids. Make sure your St. Andrew's cross is stable in your living room. This is the great unifier. There's this discussion of sex between transsexual individuals, those with disabilities. Nightlife is for everyone. Kink is a place of resilience. It's all very candid and a bit light, and I think this is my goal when I sat down to make this video. I started looking at medical records first, and then protests and quilts, and just this overall great loss in the community. Violence, hate, neglect, sickness as an inevitable, a punishment even. It's terrible, but when I found this artifact, this one community was still doing the care and still living their life in the peak of a crisis. It was beautiful, leather and latex clad, unashamed, just trying to keep people safe, regardless if they were being good girls or bad girls or whatever. It's hard to sort through the mess. The archive is imbued with this tragedy and all these feelings of complexity, but joy sometimes can bleed through. So here's what this means, or at least what I think it does. Sex-positive activism is a unique highlight in an otherwise bleak period. It was about desire and not statistics. It's an interesting performance, and I'm a drag queen, so trust I know what performance means. Now I have to clean up this damn mess, but at least it's my mess. Who wrote this damn script? I need to stop getting these chicken shit gigs. I'm sure, bitch. Well, I'm not. But either way, this is like way below my pay grade.